Hello, Wendy's my name. It was a huge coincidence when I discovered the journal my mother left for me when I was cleaning my garage. She recalled a dreadful and painful teenage childhood. I wanted to share a part of the diary with all of you today. My mother and I were sold to demons. Around 40 years ago, the story began. My mom, Rose, was a beautiful and innocent 25-year-old girl. Her future husband was Hawk, a 30-year-old entrepreneur. Rose always wanted a happy little family with a husband and kids. But trouble stirred up when Hawk went bankrupt and he had several debts. So the two had to leave the town to move to the city to hide from the loan sharks. My mother wrote in her diary, "We've been searching for work for days in several hotels and restaurants. Finally, the most prominent hotel owner, Henry, came one day to speak to us and let us work in his hotel. He knew our situation and vowed to let us have meals and stay at the hotel. Hawk and I were like drowning people, but got a life jacket. You can tell that both of us were overjoyed. Henry had a 22-year-old daughter named Elena. She was pretty cold and didn't speak to anyone, and she always stayed indoors. Henry also had Black Moon, a merchant association. They were friends of Henry and usually met every week at the hotel. They had a secret meeting each time and spoke in a big meeting room, and nobody could join except the club members. The odd thing was, both Henry and all the Black Moon members loved and treated Elena like their own daughter. They cared for her and gave her a prosperous life. But still, Elena didn't care and acted distant. Sometimes she even seemed against them and expressed her hatred towards them. I was puzzled about that and thought perhaps Elena was just too spoiled. A part of my job at the hotel was to take care of Elena. I wanted to befriend her because she seemed so lonely in that huge hotel. She was hesitant and cold at first, but Elena slowly warmed up to me. Every time she spoke in a quiet voice and always looked around as if she was trying to hide a secret that she could not let anyone know. I once told her that after getting married, I wanted to have children with Hawk. When she heard that, Elena looked around and whispered in my ears, "Don't have any baby while working here. They'll ruin your life." A black shadow suddenly passed by the door. I was shocked and went out to check, but found nobody. Perhaps it was just my imagination. The next day after waking up, I was frightened when I heard the news that Elena had jumped to the river and no one could find her body. The Black Moon members acted very strange after her death. They didn't look for her body, nor arrange a funeral. They didn't even feel sorry for the daughter they had just lost. Again, I was puzzled by these strange occurrences in the hotel. I was curious, so I asked the hotel owner, but he replied with a scary look. "Don't ever talk about Elena again. Pretend like nothing ever happened." Then he left, leaving me with thousands of questions. One day, the loan shark found Hawk and I and showed up at our workplace. If Hawk didn't pay the money, they threatened to destroy everything there. Fortunately, Henry was there to protect us. He even paid our debts so we wouldn't be chased after again. We were so grateful for his generous action and didn't know how to repay him. But Henry said, "Just stay here and work hard. Honestly, you don't have to do anything else to repay me." Since then, I started receiving special treatment. The Black Moon paid a lot of attention to me. Henry told me that I no longer needed to do the hard work around the hotel. Somebody would take care of that. He also arranged a private room for me, like Elena's. It all happened so fast that I didn't understand what was going on. Henry's sudden kindness, Elena's mysterious death, and the attention of the Black Moon freaked me out. I refused all those privileges and said that I preferred working and living in the old room on the first floor with my husband. Henry said with a serious tone, "I helped you guys pay back your debt. And you want to deny my goodwill?" Hearing that, I had no choice but to agree, but in my mind, there were thousands of questions that I didn't have anyone to share with. One day, Henry and Hawk asked me to join the Black Moon's private meeting. They said they'd be holding a marriage for Hawk and me and encouraging us to have a baby soon. We'll provide for the baby. We know having a baby is your dream. The Black Moon will also take care of all the wedding fees and the pregnancy cost. I almost cried out of happiness. I had been wanting to have a wedding and a baby for a long time, but I had to postpone that dream to work to pay the loan sharks. I happily accepted his support. They were such kind and respectful people. Later, my husband's salary was raised, and he was allowed to serve in every meeting of the Black Moon, something not everyone was allowed to do. The wedding took place shortly after in the presence of the association. Everything went well, except that I was forced to perform very strange rituals, like bowing to a baby doll and washing my hands with a basin of bright red water. They said it was a special ritual to pray for happiness. Day by day, I kept living in the attention and prosperity that the Black Moon offered. My job was just to sit still in the hotel, something Elena used to do, or was forced to do. I myself hadn't found the answer. Receiving the extremely attentive care that used to belong to Elena before, I sometimes found myself confused and wondering. But every time I asked about that girl, Henry and the members of the guild expressed intense hatred instead of sorrow. They refused to get reminded about the traitor who left her caretakers to seek death like Elena. On those occasions, Henry often told me that, "We will love you like our own children, because you are a good, obedient girl, Rose." Gradually, I became like a doll, sitting still, looking pretty in a glass cabinet. I didn't have to work, but I wasn't allowed to go out. I tried to escape just to go for a walk, but I was quickly discovered and received a warning from the Black Moon. What was being hidden? How did Elena die? And why did they change their attitude towards her so quickly? Was Elena really a traitor, or were the people in that association the ones suspicious? These questions were answered by my mother in the following pages of her diary. She found out the horrifying truth behind Elena's death, as well as the scary purpose of the Black Moon. Come back soon to hear the next part of this story. Hello, everyone. I hope you haven't forgotten the story in my mom's diary in the last episode. It's me, Wendy again. In the first part, I told you about some of the first pages in my mother's diary, which she wrote when she was 25 years old. She had to flee from the shark loans at the time by traveling to the city with her husband, Hawk. Here, she met the generous owner of the hotel, Henry, and the Black Moon Merchant Association members. Their behavior changed after the mysterious death of Elena, their favorite girl. They suddenly despised her and avoided questions about her. They also gave my mother a lot of privileges and unconditional love that kept her questioning. But my mother believed that they were kind people when they helped her achieve her long-cherished dream to get married and have all the costs of giving birth covered. And just like that, my mother became a captive doll in a palatial hotel. Now, I will tell you the next part in this diary. Not long after the wedding, my husband said that it was about time to have a child, something he had never wanted before. Hawk was only interested in making money and always avoided the topic of children. But lately, Hawk started taking care of me more. Every night before bed, he would bring me a cup of warm milk. I was deeply moved. Was it because thanks to the Black Moon, he no longer had to worry about money and therefore changed into a better husband? But also since then, I often felt very tired when I woke up in the morning. My husband and everyone reassured me that maybe it was due to stress. I was somewhat reassured. Not long after, I found myself having unusual symptoms, and I was overwhelmed when I found out I was pregnant. Not only was my husband happy, but also all the members of the Black Moon were excited. They said they had been waiting for this baby for a long time. When the news of my pregnancy got out, people took even better care of me. They gave me a lot of nutritious food. But how strange it was that my health gradually worsened. Ever since I was pregnant, every night, I was haunted by the dream of Henry's daughter, Elena, appearing outside my window. She kept repeating the phrase, "Your child will ruin you," just like she told me before she died. I was terrified, and the changes that came with being pregnant made me even more exhausted. Finally, I told the members of Black Moon about my dream. They claimed that the room was haunted by Elena, and that she only wanted to harm the baby. They then began an exorcism to drive Elena's spirit out of the room. Immediately after the exorcism, I happened to pass by the conference room and overheard the horrible things the Black Moon and my husband were discussing. From the crack in the door, I saw Henry rise and declare, "The child that Rose is carrying is ours. It must be born in safety because it will be an important sacrifice for the demon. We will be given godly strength after sacrificing the baby." I was shocked and terrified when I thought about the horrible future awaiting both my baby and myself. We were in grave danger because it was a demon-worshipping cult. They took advantage of my pregnancy to find a child to sacrifice to the demon. And now my husband, Hawk, was no longer on my side. He became their pawn because his huge debt was paid by them. Surely, they must have bribed him to convince me to get married and have children. No one would protect me anymore. If I stayed in this evil place, I would end up in hell. I must find a way to escape. I immediately ran to find a way to escape, but all the doors were locked. All this time, I was enjoying my privileges without knowing that it was a trap. They blinded my eyes by always providing me with everything without making me work for a single minute. I suddenly understood why Elena was always inside the hotel and never went out. It was not because she was unapproachable, but because she was caged, just like me. That night, I stayed awake in fear. I had thought of all the possible ways to escape from there, but to no avail. At midnight, I suddenly saw a woman's figure appear outside the window. I was so scared that I couldn't utter a word, and just stared out the window where the shadow was standing. It was exactly what appeared in my dream every night. The shadow said softly, "It's me, Elena. I'm still alive, and I've come to save you." It turned out it wasn't a ghost. It was Elena. I came to the window and opened it. We could only talk through the window bars that the Black Moon had installed before to keep Elena from escaping. Elena said she used to come back in the middle of the night to warn me, but I didn't realize that until now. Elena explained to me that she was not the biological child of Henry. She was taken here by the Black Moon and was raised until she could give them a child to sacrifice. Elena was drugged and assaulted by Henry to carry his child. It occurred to me that maybe the reason I always fell asleep every night and got tired the next morning was because the milk that Hawk gave me each night had anesthetics. Maybe Henry got me pregnant during that time, like how he did to Elena. Elena further explained they wanted that baby to belong to the whole cult, so they let Henry do it directly, and later they would sacrifice the baby to the demon. But how did she come back? They said you were dead, I asked her. Elena sighed. After knowing that I warned you about giving birth, they feared that their intention would be revealed. They brought me to the river and threw me down there to kill me. They made it seem like a suicide. I was lucky to be alive. But to escape the pursuit of the Black Moon, I had to pretend I was dead. Because I don't want you to end up like me, I can only return in the middle of the night to warn you. I was so shocked and disgusted with the baby I was carrying. But my motherly instincts kept me from getting rid of the baby. I just wanted to escape that hellhole before I got in danger. Elena told me about a secret tunnel in the basement of the hotel and said, "Try to run as fast and keep as quiet as possible. I will wait for you at the end of the street and help you escape from this place." I immediately followed suit. As soon as I came out of the tunnel, Elena was already waiting for me. She let me run first and ran after me to keep guard and make sure we were safe. We kept running, and after a while, suddenly I heard Elena's shrill cry from behind. I turned around and saw that she had been captured. Unfortunately, one of the cult members saw Elena and caught her. I was panicking and didn't know if I should stop or keep running. Suddenly, from afar, Elena shouted, "Run! Now, Rose! Run away from here! For you and for the baby!" I looked at Elena with tears in my eyes. I swallowed bitterly, then turned away and ran, leaving Elena in captivity. I kept running far and far away. After many days, I reached a remote town. I took refuge in a remote monastery to give birth and rebuild my life. Many years had passed. My child, Wendy, had grown up safely, but I still didn't know the whereabouts and the fate of Elena after she was caught. I still couldn't forget that painful memory and always hoped that one day I could find Elena to say thank you for saving my life. And guys, I was that child. My mom, Rose, unfortunately passed away at 65 from being sick. She couldn't fulfill her wish to find Elena again. Before she died, she left me this diary. The fanaticism of inhumane cults like Black Moon had used and destroyed fragile women like my mother and Elena. I hope in this modern world there will be no place for such evil associations and cruel activities.